Wife of 15 years mocked me in a group chat with coworkers for doing housework. Now she's apologizing, but I'm struggling to trust her again. I never thought I'd have a reason to post on Reddit, but here I am. My wife, 41F, and I, 42M, have been married for 15 years. Apparently, I surprised her by being able to handle household chores and tasks, something I didn't think much of. Growing up, my mom always had me help out around the house, so I never saw it as anything special. I also think I inherited my wife's tendency to clean obsessively, so much so that I can't even eat until everything is tidy. My mom is a fantastic cook, my aunt was a chef at a high-end hotel, and my dad was the barbecue king. It was only natural to learn from them and pick up some skills. The one thing I never quite mastered, though, is making a decent cup of tea or coffee. I'm genuinely terrible at it. Over time, I've ended up taking on most of the household chores and cooking, which I actually prefer since she comes home exhausted. I've also been encouraging our kids, 11F and 9M, to pitch in with small tasks around the house, hoping to teach them these skills too. My wife has a group of friends who hang out often, and this time, it was her turn to host. I offered to take the kids out for the day so she could enjoy her time with her friends. Before we left, I needed to finish some work, and since my office is just above the living room, I could hear their conversation. One of her friends asked how she keeps the house so clean, and my wife proudly claimed that she's the one who handles it all. Then they all started talking about their gripes with their marriages. A common theme was how unhelpful their spouses were. I felt pretty uncomfortable, so I just left the office and went out with the kids. I came back after they had left for the night and acted as normal until we got to our bedroom. I asked her what was up with that conversation they had and pointed out that I did the cooking and cleaning in our marriage. She told me not to take it personally, and that she just wanted to fit in with the struggles of her friends. Now I just feel unappreciated, especially since I don't clearly remember any genuine gratitude for what I do from her. Since then, she's been pretty short with me. She says I'm weaponizing what I'm doing against her and holding it over her head. I don't expect her to compliment me each time I clean or defend me religiously, just a little. My husband is pretty helpful actually, he does his share would be nice. I can't help but feel like her friends think I'm some sort of deadbeat who comes home to relax and neglect her. Update 1. I'm honestly surprised that this post gained so much attention, and I did my best to talk to my wife yesterday. I just can't believe this is the woman I married. I tried having a conversation with her, telling her that what she did wasn't a huge deal, but it still wasn't a kind thing to do. She didn't appreciate me bringing it up again and told me to stop complaining about one mistake. She apologized, but it sounded more like she was tired of dealing with it. I could tell she was getting really upset and about to start an argument, so I decided to change the subject. I suggested we try to make our home duties more balanced since most of it falls on me. I'm talking about almost everything: cooking, cleaning, even planning date nights or family vacations. It bothers me that she comes home and just says she's too tired. Then she got in my face, saying I had no right to lecture her on chores since I'm home most of the time. She refused to listen to me and told me that what we have works best for us. She reminded me that she's the primary earner, so that supposedly balances things out. Even this morning, she was in a bad mood, and I'm sure our kids noticed. I drove them to school after they were ready, and when I came back, I found she had left her packed lunch on the kitchen counter. So now I'm sitting here, just feeling like the woman I've known for 15 years hates me. I guess I'll have to push this issue properly even if she gets angry. She's been ignoring my texts and attempts to call her. I can't just let her act like this, especially in front of our children. Update 2. I think I've reached my breaking point. I did something I've never done before and went through her phone while she was asleep. We both know each other's passwords, so it wasn't difficult. I was feeling paranoid about some of the comments about cheating, and I couldn't shake the suspicion. What I found was a group chat with some of her coworkers, different from the ones who visited. The entire conversation was filled with mockery about me and the things I do for her. She shared how embarrassed she feels to be with me, saying that I treat her like a child rather than her husband. She called the lunches I pack for her humiliating because I include sweets and treats I know she likes. Some of her colleagues even teased her about the snacks I pack, and she admitted to throwing them away at work. She doesn't mind eating them at home, but she throws out my homemade treats when she's at work? She had some harsh things to say about me in that chat, things I can't even bring myself to repeat here. One of the memes she shared was of me on my knees, scrubbing the bathroom floor, but it was edited to make me look like a 1960s housewife wearing a dress. I just closed her phone and left the bedroom. I confronted her about the chat in the morning and the contents of it, which got her panicking. I focused on our kids this morning and left her to her own devices. It's not like she would have appreciated a kid's lunch anyways. Now she's texting me like crazy at the office, but I think I lost all respect for her and what she's become. Not only does she find me overbearing and embarrassing as a husband, but then I find out she mocks me to her friends and exposes some sensitive relationship issues to her group chat. This will probably be the last update, since I don't think she can come back from this. We just celebrated our 15th anniversary last month too. I feel like a loser now after seeing what my wife actually thinks of me. Final update. I know I'll probably face some criticism for my decision, but I decided to give my wife another chance. About 2 weeks ago, she gave me a sincere apology for her actions and how she treated me. In her own words, she admitted that she allowed her friends' opinions at work and her best friend's influence to affect her too much. She acknowledged that she tried to fit in by playing both sides, the one with the useless husband and the one with the clingy husband. She made it clear that she wasn't using them as an excuse and took full responsibility for her behavior, which I appreciate. She suggested we go to marriage counseling and insisted on handling the arrangements herself to show how serious she is about making this work. She's even copied me in her communications with a counselor, though it'll be some time before we have our first session. She's also taken more initiative around the house, doing things without me asking. The compliments I used to receive are coming back, and I do feel more appreciated. My wife promised not to lie to her friend group anymore and to give me the credit I deserve. As for her work friends, their opinions of me remain unchanged, even though she's spoken to them. Part of this feels disingenuous, since it took us getting into a bad spot for this to happen. Maybe it's just resentment talking. I just hope this works out for our sake and the kids. And no, she has not been cheating or had some guy in her ear telling her things. A lot of DMs are asking about that. Second story. My wife confessed to an affair after I received an anonymous email. Now I'm left to handle the fallout, including divorce and custody. Any advice on how to cope with the situation and help my kids adjust? I, M47, have a comfortable and fulfilling life. I have a job I enjoy, live in a nice suburb, and am fortunate to have 3 wonderful children, M8, F6, F4, and a loving wife, Emily, 45. I've always thought Emily and I were perfectly suited for each other. However, a recent email I received has deeply disturbed me and left me with doubts. Emily lived in the UK from 2010 to 2015 while pursuing her PhD. During that time, she formed many close friendships and has made a point of visiting every few years to maintain those relationships. This past August, she traveled back to the UK for 3 weeks to attend the wedding of a close friend. After discussing it, we decided it would be best for me and the kids to stay home, as I couldn't take that much time off work, and the kids wouldn't enjoy the event. Emily left, returned as planned, and things returned to normal. Last week, I received an email at work, supposedly from Jake's, M44, wife. She claims to have strong reasons to believe that Jake and Emily had an affair. She listed several suspicions, such as Jake picking Emily up from the airport, spending a lot of time together at her hotel, and going out to dinner alone frequently. She even attached photos of my wife's earrings, which she allegedly found in Jake's pockets while doing laundry, as well as a lipstick stain on his shirt that matches a color I know Emily wears. She mentioned other details, but for brevity, I'll leave those out. All this was a lot to absorb, and for a while, I thought it was some sort of joke, so I tried my best to ignore it, but it kept coming back into my mind. I remember that before her trip, my wife would talk to all her friends there. I don't know if this email is influencing my memory, but I think she probably spoke with Jake the most. Additionally, I know Emily never liked Jake's wife, though I can't say why. I've never snooped through Emily's phone or social media accounts before, but now I'm really tempted to do so. However, I'd feel awful if I checked and found nothing. Also, if I start acting suspicious, wouldn't she just delete everything to cover her tracks? I'm unsure of how to handle this situation and would appreciate any advice. Right now, the best idea I have is to ask her to show me her phone immediately after confronting her, so there's no chance for her to delete anything. But part of me worries this might upset her and might not even reveal anything. Would I be the asshole for asking my wife to show me her phone after receiving an email accusing her of cheating? Edit, I forgot to mention, my wife no longer has those earrings. She wasn't wearing them when she returned, and when I asked, she said she lost them. Update 1. A few hours after sharing my first post, I confronted Emily. She confirmed my fears. She claims she's in love with Jake and can't live a lie any longer. She still claims to love me and the kids but says she can't stay with us any longer. According to her, she was waiting for a better time to tell me and the children. Apparently, this has been going on since March, with Jake flying out here occasionally and Emily secretly meeting him. We're getting a divorce. Emily will be moving to the UK soon. She confirmed that, in addition to attending the wedding in August, she had a job interview and is set to start work there around the new year. She's already applied for a British visa and plans to live with Jake once she moves. Regarding custody, Emily has decided to forego full custody, not wanting to uproot the kids. They'll stay here in Canada with me. Part of me appreciates her decision, but I'm also shocked at how easily she's walking away. She wants to pay child support, but I'd prefer to raise the children without her financial involvement. However, the court will likely insist on child support, regardless of my preference. Emily is also requesting structured visitation, which will likely be granted, as courts typically favor arrangements that allow both parents to maintain relationships with their children, even when one parent moves abroad. Our lawyers are still finalizing the details, but it seems she'll have visitation during school breaks and holidays, with the possibility of virtual calls in between. I've been trying to keep things amicable, and the more cooperative I am, the more Emily seems to agree to my terms. We're also discussing what to do with our home. Emily wants to sell the house and split the proceeds. While I'm hesitant to sell the family home, I likely have little choice since it was purchased during our marriage. For now, our lawyers are still working out the details, and no final decisions have been made. It may take a while before we come to a resolution. In the meantime, I've been advised not to make any major financial decisions. As much as I want to stay here with the kids, I know selling the house is probably inevitable. Currently, Emily is staying in an Airbnb, and Jake has flown here to stay with her. They plan to travel to the UK soon. My lawyer tells me that adultery isn't grounds for special treatment when it comes to custody or property division. Therefore, it won't influence how assets are divided unless marital funds are directly involved. Emily likely used money from her personal account. Unless it can be proven she used our joint finances to fund the affair, it's unlikely this will make any difference in court. I have been in regular communication with Jake's soon-to-be ex-wife, Eleanor, primarily through email, and more recently, we've spoken over the phone a few times. Eleanor apologized, saying she felt guilty for telling me about the affair and worried that if she hadn't, maybe my marriage could have been salvaged. I reassured her that, for me, the gravity of the situation made divorce inevitable, and I'd rather not remain in the dark about something of this significance. She even sent me messages and other evidence of their relationship, but since Emily is openly admitting to the affair, it doesn't really matter in the context of the law. Eleanor has also told me a lot about Jake. Apparently, this is the third time he's cheated on her, and she's had enough. There's no chance of reconciliation this time, she says, and he doesn't seem interested in trying. She mentioned that Jake has zero desire to raise children who are not biologically his, which explains why Emily's not fighting for custody. Eleanor's divorce will most likely be much longer and more drawn out than mine given that both her and Jake want full custody of their children, and can't agree on several other issues. I haven't had much time to process everything. These past 2 weeks have felt like a blur in every way. But one thing I can say with certainty is that I have nothing left for Emily. Not because she betrayed our marriage, but because of how easily she's walking away from our children. I never thought I could hate someone I once loved so much. It's a strange feeling. The hardest part in all of this is the children. My 2 youngest daughters have started asking why their mother isn't around as much anymore, and it's been very difficult trying to communicate with them about the nature of the situation. My eldest seems to understand a little more and, as a result, he has become quiet and withdrawn. I'm incredibly fortunate to have a supportive family. My children have received many thoughtful letters from their cousins, which I read to them each night. All of my siblings have sent gifts for the kids, and over the past weekend, one of my brothers and his wife visited. My sister-in-law even cooked a lot of food, some of which is still in the freezer, and they kept the kids entertained while I met with my lawyer. My other siblings have also offered to step in and help care for the kids whenever needed. Additionally, my parents have been checking in daily, and my 78-year-old mother has planned to stay with us for 2 weeks in November to lend a hand around the house. The support from my family has made this situation much easier to handle, and I'm truly grateful for everything they've done. I also want to thank everyone who encouraged me to speak with Emily after my last post. I was tempted to disregard Eleanor's message, but it kept bothering me. Your advice gave me the strength to take action. Emily has proven to be dishonest, and I now firmly believe her idea of a better time was simply when it would be most convenient for her and Jake. New update. Think of this less as an update and more as a chance to vent a few things now that I've had more time to process my situation. I know that Emily often traveled back and forth to the UK during our marriage. She claims her affair with Jake only began in March 2024, but I'm convinced she's lying. It's almost certain that this has been going on for years. Given how much she had already prepared by the time I confronted her, it's become clear to me and everyone else that she had been planning this for some time. In fact, within a few short days of our confrontation, she already had certain legal documents prepared. Additionally, Jake arriving in Canada shortly after I confronted Emily, made it clear that they had planned for her to tell me roughly around this date in advance. It makes sense now that Emily was well prepared and just waiting for everything to fall into place for her. She had already applied for her visa, secured a job, had our family car, which was under her name, appraised in secret, and sent personal belongings with Jake during his covert trips to the UK, all of this happening right under my nose without me realizing. I suspect I'm only seeing a fraction of what actually transpired, and I'll likely never know the full extent of it, especially since Emily would never reveal that to me. To top it off, Emily had already been consulting with her lawyer long before I confronted her. Considering all of this, I can't help but wonder if she secured her job earlier than she let on, perhaps to make her actions appear less premeditated. Two of Emily's friends have reached out to express their shock and disappointment in her actions. One, Janet, mentioned that according to another friend, Emily had been meeting with her divorce lawyer as early as late August or early September. This friend also confirmed my suspicion that Emily had been sending some of her personal items to the UK during Jake's visits. I've been losing sleep over the past few months, replaying everything in my head. Maybe I'm even driving myself a little crazy, but some details stand out. For instance, when Emily went to the UK in August for the wedding, she had 3 large, fully packed suitcases. She told me they were filled with presents for her friends, and I didn't question it, even though it seemed excessive. However, when I picked her up from the airport, the bags were unexpectedly lighter. I now suspect that in addition to the job interview she mentioned, she used the trip to move a lot of her personal belongings to the UK, which might explain why she's been wearing a smaller variety of clothes since her return. Despite this, I was somehow blindsided, and I completely blame myself. Looking back, I can see there were signs I ignored, and I guess I didn't think Emily was capable of this sort of thing. A part of me wonders if this outcome could have been avoided entirely had I been more assertive and vigilant in the past. The worst part of all is that my children are now dealing with the consequences of my ignorance and stupidity. While I twiddled my thumbs, my wife had essentially started a new life. Most people in my life are now aware of my separation from Emily. I've stopped wearing my wedding band and have explained the situation to friends and coworkers who noticed its absence. A close friend, along with several others who reached out privately on Reddit, suggested I get DNA tests for the children, given Emily's travel history and her tendency to be dishonest. While I understand their concerns, I'll never do that. I could never question my children's paternity, no matter the circumstances. Life without Emily has been challenging so far. Mornings are a chaotic rush, getting the kids ready while trying to leave on time for work. I'm often late for work at least half the week, and it's exhausting juggling all the extra responsibilities that come with solo parenting. Our house has a large driveway, and I'm already dreading having to shovel it once the snow starts falling. The kids are also feeling the pressure. They don't enjoy the meals I prepare most days and they're frustrated by how busy I always am. It's hard knowing we're struggling while Emily is off on a relaxing vacation through Europe with Jake. Communication between us has become scarce, and I've only recently learned about these plans. I have no idea whether she intends to return to Canada after her vacation or just settle into what will likely be a very comfortable life in the UK. On a more positive note, I was able to get the kids to see their doctor recently. She gave me a bunch of useful resources and advice. She placed an emphasis on how time and clear communication were the most important factors for their adjustment. While I'm optimistic, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried. It's still early, I know, but they remain quite upset about the entire ordeal and act out regularly as a result. It is abundantly clear that they're having a hard time adjusting to our new reality. Throughout all of this, my family has been a tremendous support. My mother arrived as promised early last week, and things have already become significantly easier. The kids enjoy her cooking and spending time with her. Her presence has also freed me to handle other tasks. Whenever the divorce is finalized, I plan to designate my eldest brother and sister-in-law as legal guardians for the children. They live relatively nearby and have already agreed to take on that role if needed, which brings me some peace of mind. However, I highly doubt this will be any time soon given my much busier schedule and Emily dragging her feet before traveling. The whole process has slowed to a snail's pace. One of the hardest aspects of all this has been making decisions about our family home. After considerable thought and speaking it over many times with my family, I'm leaning towards selling at this stage. Emily has already offered me a bit more than half of the proceeds since she sold our SUV right before leaving the country. My lawyer has noted that selling the SUV before we finalized anything was premature on her part, considering I contributed significantly, 40%, to the purchase. He thinks I have strong grounds to seek reimbursement elsewhere in our asset division, which aligns with Emily offering more of the house. Getting more than half seems fair, given that I contributed about 65 to 70% of the down payment and monthly mortgage payments. As I mentioned above, the family SUV was registered in only her name. However, I covered about 40% of its cost, so it's frustrating she sold it unilaterally. As I've learned over the past several weeks, my sedan is too snug for the kids and inconvenient for my mother to duck in and out of when she runs errands. Therefore, I'll need to trade it for something larger. In return, Emily has graciously insisted I keep the furniture and appliances, least she can do, I suppose. As much as I'd prefer to stay in our current home, moving seems like the better choice. Part of me hopes that relocating will help us avoid future interference from Emily, but realistically, she'll likely interfere no matter where we are. I've been considering townhouses closer to my workplace, which would reduce my commute and place us near a highly rated school. However, my sisters pointed out that moving the kids now would involve changing schools and losing their friends, which would be another major upheaval for them. Another option is to move to a smaller, more manageable house nearby, which would make things easier for me and allow the kids to stay in their current school. Either way, the idea of a new home that doesn't carry Emily's memory is appealing. The location of our current home is another example of my poor judgment. It was more convenient for Emily's commute than mine. It worked for a while, since the kids' school was close to her work in case they needed her, but now that's irrelevant since my workplace is far away. I haven't heard from Emily's family, and honestly, I have no desire to reach out. As for Emily's future with Jake, I don't wish for their relationship to fail. The more stable her life is, the less likely she is to cause trouble for ours. However, I find some comfort in knowing she's unaware of Jake's infidelity history. I don't feel morally obligated to warn her about Jake, and Eleanor feels the same way. I've been checking in with Eleanor regularly. She doesn't have the same family support I do. Her family is charmed by Jake's wealth and believes she should do whatever it takes to keep him, even though it's clear that neither Jake nor Eleanor wants reconciliation. Third story. Wife suggested open marriage, I considered divorce, now she's begging for a second chance after emotional cheating. Am I overreacting? I'm unsure if I've overreacted or if I've been reasonable in this situation. We've been married for 12 years, and things have always been great with no major ups and downs. My wife has always been a kind and sweet person, and up until now, I held her in the highest regard. Then she brought up the idea of an open marriage. She suggested, what if we consider opening up our marriage, because all of her friends were doing it, and it's 2024. I didn't get angry or react strongly, I just listened and shared my thoughts. I asked if her friends were pressuring her into this, and she said no. I also asked if she already had someone in mind, and she said no. I asked for some time to think it over, and she agreed, assuring me that we wouldn't go through with it if I wasn't comfortable. Although I shouldn't have, in the days that followed, I checked her phone and laptop, but I didn't find anything suspicious or indicating she was already cheating. Last week I told her I thought about it and in my opinion she can date anyone she wants, because I want a divorce. Cue the sobbing, the begging and all if I knew I wouldn't have even asked. She refuses to move out and so do I, so I sleep in the guest room. She's taken sick from work and every time I am home she keeps begging to talk and go back to the bedroom with her. I believe her friends actually tried to influence her and she didn't do anything at all, but this unraveled my perception of her. Was I too fast to mention divorce? Update. I wasn't jumping to conclusions, she was emotionally cheating and planning to take it further physically. I checked her phone and computer, but found nothing. However, she then revealed a second phone that I had no idea about. She assumed I already knew, which is why she confessed. Just as I was starting to second-guess my decision, I learned that her friends had influenced her. Apparently, their version of open marriages was just a cover for their own affairs. What I found was gut-wrenching. She's pleading for a second chance, and a part of me is foolishly considering it, but I know it's not the right choice. I don't want to leave her, but for the sake of my dignity, pride, and self-respect, I know I must. The fact that I love her no longer seems important. New update. This update isn't ideal. I was in the process of talking to a lawyer when someone very close to me passed away in a car accident. So everything has stopped for now. My wife wanted to organize the funeral, and although I made an effort to stop her she still did. She says my behavior is not fair because this person was like a son to her as well and in a moment like this we should stick together. Then she doesn't care if I divorce her or not. Once again, I told her that she's free to do whatever she wants, as long as it's away from me. Since she wouldn't respect my grief, I stopped talking to her completely. She could talk, cry, or complain, but I wouldn't engage. 2 days ago, I took my relative's ashes and moved into the apartment above my restaurant. My brother works as the bartender, and I instructed him and our staff to turn my wife away if she shows up. She tried blowing up my phone, claiming that taking the ashes was a low blow and that we should stick together through this tragedy, but I just blocked her. I won't be updating anymore. I just want to be left alone to grieve and then settle things with my wife.